Hello there, my name is Ismail, and today let's look at top 10 mistakes made by Blender beginners. Number 1, deleting the default cube. Number 2, not applying the scale of an object. A lot of things in Blender depend on the transformation of an object. That includes scale, rotation, and the location of the object, but more so the scale than anything else. So the things that heavily rely on the scale of an object are modifiers, the rigid body system, and editing the object in edit mode. Let's look at how the scale of an object affects modifiers. So if we select these two objects, scale them up in object mode, and then apply a bevel modifier to each of them. Now we have scaled up the object, but we have not applied the scale. Now look at what happens when we apply the scale of one of the objects. So let me apply a scale for this, and the way you apply the scale, you can use the shortcut Ctrl A, or you can go under object and then you should find the apply menu and then apply scale. You can see the bevel changes. Let's look at how the scale of your object affects the object in edit mode. So let me again just add a plane, subdivide this a few times just to demonstrate what I mean here. So you can see this is the object we have now. So if you try to push an edge like this using Alt S along its normal, so if I use Alt S, I'm pushing this vertex along its normal, but you can see how fast it's being moved. I don't really have good control over this because it's moving too fast. And maybe let's select a few faces here, push them up. You can see how fast they're going. This is simply because we have not applied the scale. Now let me duplicate this. These are two separate objects, but if you have them selected, if you have both selected, you can go to edit mode for both objects. And if I use Alt S, I'm pushing them along their normals. That's how I'm doing this using Alt S. You can see they're getting pushed too fast. And but if I apply the scale for this object, again the shortcut is Ctrl A, or just go under object, apply scale. Now if we do this again, remember this is not applied, this is applied. Edit mode, Alt S. You can see how slow this goes, and this is more controllable than this. Again, this doesn't seem to be a big problem here because it's just a plane, but if you have a more complicated model, it becomes an issue. Mistake number 3, not collecting project files. So whenever you're starting a project in Blender, you end up importing a lot of textures, maybe even fonts to use for your projects. The issue is whenever you're using such projects, they're always stored from the original location. So for example, I have this texture I had for this cave, and you can see that if I try finding this texture, it's located in my textures folder. So if I tried sharing this file, those textures will remain in the textures folder, so they will not go, or they will not be shipped with the Blender file, and you will end up with a file missing error in your Blender, where this screen is just showing where the textures are simply rendered as pink in your project file. If you have seen this error, that's what is causing them. So let's say you are using this, let's find an image here. Let's say you're using this image in your project, and you just drag it from this folder, drop it into your project file. It's not saved to the project folder, it's still located in the textures folder that you imported it from. So what I've seen people do is usually whenever they're trying to create a new project, let's say new project here, they save it under a folder, and then within that folder they create an image folder, a textures folder, a reference images folder. So they categorize everything in different folder, which is a good thing. The problem or the issue with that is that if say you import, let's go back to this. If say you import another image into your project file, it won't be automatically saved to the folders you have created. And if you forget to move that folder or that image or texture into those folders, you will end up losing those images or that information. So the best way to do this is create the folders you want to create, but after you're done with the project, make sure to go under File, External Data, Pack into Blender. This will do is collect all the resources you have used and pack them into the Blender file. So if you're sending off this project file to another person, you can just send the Blender project blend file, and this will include all the textures you have. Let's go on to mistake number 4, rendering video. So a mistake I've seen a lot of users making, especially beginners, is when they're trying to render out animation, they go into the render settings and change the output from a PNG file format to a movie format. Make sure you're rendering out an image sequence format like PNG or JPEG. Otherwise, if you're rendering out a movie format and Blender for any reason crashes, you will lose all that work you have done or progress you have done. It doesn't matter if you had rendered just almost 99%. If Blender crashes at 99% of your rendering, you will lose all that work. The exported video file will get corrupted and you will lose that work. That's why I will recommend you always export an image sequence. Mistake number 5, forgetting to stop the record button. So whenever you're making animations, let me add a cube here. You can, and you start recording keyframes like this. After you're done making the animation, make sure to turn off keyframe recording. Otherwise, you might mistakenly add keyframes you didn't want to add. 6, not saving a backup file. So whenever you're creating a project, always make sure to save a backup file for your project, so that if Blender crashes for any reason, you have a backup file for in cases you open up the original file and is corrupted. Mistake number 7, not recalculating your normals. A lot of things in Blender depend on the direction of your normals. Let me just turn on orientation to just see the orientation of the normal. So if I have two objects like this, maybe two faces like this, let me join them. And one has flipped normals, and the way you do that is using the shortcut Shift N, flip the normal. This, because a lot of things depend on the direction of the normals, you might start to see artifacts and different errors. So let's look at some of the things that will be affected by having flipped normals like that, or kind of normals that are not consistent, inconsistent normals. So if we turn on shading, you see that we get this artifact here, and that can only be cleared by recalculating the normals, which you can recalculate and normals, and then recalculate normals. If you recalculate, you can say that artifact is removed. So let me flip this again. So we have that. Also, modifiers are affected by the direction of the normal. So if we go and add in a solidify modifier, extrude this, you can see because we have inconsistent normals here, you're getting this error. So again, you can fix that by using Shift N to recalculate the normals, or just go under mesh and clear the normals there. Another modifier that is affected by the normals is the bevel modifier. So let's just extrude this up. So you can see we have that artifact, and add a bevel modifier. You see how it's kind of creating this weird thing going on here. That can only be cleared if you recalculate the normals, Shift N, and you can see now we have a perfect bevel. So a lot of things can be affected. Again, even when you are extruding or doing other things in edit mode, they can be affected by the direction of the normals. So maybe let me show you some of those things. Let me first turn off this. Again, there is a bevel tool in edit mode, which you can access here, or use the shortcut Shift B. You can see because we have inconsistent normals, we are getting that issue as well. So I would need to recalculate the normals and then bevel again to get what we need. So, number 8, zooming in too much. So whenever you're editing an object like this, you can zoom in by using the period key on your numpad. But sometimes you'll find that if you zoom in too much, you start going through the mesh, and you can see that. So to fix that, just hit N on your keyboard and go under View, and increase the clip start, so that you have more room to zoom in and zoom out. Or sometimes if you just zoom in too much, you might lose what I think this should also be on the list. So if you zoom out too much, you might see that you don't see anything in your scene, and you don't know where your scene is. You don't know where your scene is anymore. So you can see I'm trying to look for it and I can't find it. So the easiest way to get back to your scene, just hit A to select everything, and you can see that I'm selecting everything here in the outliner, and hit your period key on your numpad to zoom back to the selected object. So if you get lost after zooming out, now I'm not sure where the original scene is, just again hit A to select everything, and then period on your keyboard to zoom back to your selected objects. Number 9, clearing parent. So in Blender there is this concept of parenting. If you don't know what that is, let me just give you a brief introduction. So it's just a concept of parents, children follow their parents, and parents kind of move with their children. So if I have an object like this, I can make this the child of this object. So Control P, go under object, and there should be a parent menu here, and you can see this now is a child of this object. So whenever this object moves, where the parent moves, this child will also move. But you can see the child can move independently of an object, but so I guess the child can go away and play, but if the parent moves, the child has to move with the parent. But the child can still play around, but if the parent moves, the child has to move with the parent. So the error here is when you're trying to clear this relationship and make this not a child anymore. So you can go under object, clear parent, or parent, and then clear parent, and clear that rotation so everything can move independent of each other. But so there is no problem here. The problem comes when you parent, then move the object. So if we clear this relationship, so clear parent, you can see this will just snap back to its original position. And if you wanted it to be in this position, and again this is a very simple scene, so it doesn't really look like it matters, but if you have a complicated scene, this can become a big issue. So to make sure that this, after you clear the parent, again you can find the option here, but the shortcut is Alt P. My keys keep turning off and on, but if I clear parent and I want to keep the child in the original in the position where they were, just clear using clear and keep transform transform. So that should keep this object here in its original position. Again, this doesn't seem like a big deal because our scene is very simple, but it can become a really big deal if your scene is complicated. Number 10, and this is the most important one, non-subscribing to this channel. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.